ミラノ派が分かれば家族療法が見えてくる。ミラノ派の第一人者、パオロ・ベルダンド先生にお聞きします。カイロスについて質問します。時間にはクロノスとカイロスという2種類があると先生の著書である心理療法における時間の役割に書いてあります。クロノスは客観的な時間。カイロスは特別な意味とつながった時間。するとカウンセラーはカイロスが変化することを望みます。このカイロスの変化の瞬間について教えてください。The difference between Chronos and Kairos in terms of the concept of the time was very interesting. Chronos means objective time, and Kairos means subjective time. Counselor aim for Kairos change. I'm very interested in this moment of change. In my experience, it is a very short period of time, less than minutes. There are no words, but there is a tacit understanding. Counselor feel also very anxious. Please tell us about this very strange moment of change.
Okay, when we found this concept of Kairos when we were working on time in therapy for our book, The Times of Time, and actually finding Kairos was one of the reasons why we called this book The Times of Time, in the plural, because we discovered that there is not just one time; there are different ways of understanding time. And in doing that, we found that for classical Greece, ancient Greece, there was this idea that Chronos is the time. Well, today we would call this the time of the clock, the clock time, meaning that you have successions of instants and minutes and hours and days, and all of those can be measured. So every second, every moment has exactly the same duration, and that's not only useful, that's necessary for our lives, in the sense that we need to be synchronized. For example, at work, you need the transportation, and if the underground is not on time, you usually get angry because we expect it to arrive at the right time and leave at the right time and bring me exactly when I want to a place. So that means that this time must be measurable. To be measurable, it must be, discrete instants that all have the same value and the same duration. But ancient Greek, they noticed that in our life, in our affective life, in the living of our life, this is not true at all. And in subjective experience, we know that there are moments that last forever, and there are moments that don't last at all. So sometimes we have, it is well known that when you have, a very tiring and boring and meaningless moments, these seem to drag on forever. And instead, when you find something good, exciting, and you like it, this moment is fantastic, but it seems to last less than a second and maybe 2 hours. So that means that for the subject, for the individual, time have different moments. At that point, the Greek noticed that there are moments that are more important than others. And so they created this concept of Kairos. Kairos means originally the right time. Kairos is the moment where something meaningful happens. So it is the right time. And as such, it's unpredictable, unfortunately. So the good news is that there can always be a Kairos when you're working in therapy. The bad news is you don't know when or how it arrives, because when it arrives, and we cannot anticipate it, and we cannot even cause the Kairos to happen deliberately. We can just set the circumstances. We create the setting for the Kairos to happen. So what does it mean? It means that we have to go on. What do we do in therapy? Mostly, the Milan systemic therapist asks questions. So the very mean to produce change is to ask questions and sometimes to make a comment. So you ask a question, you make a comment, and then you ask more questions, and so on and so forth. And sometimes the comment that you make, fortunately, makes sense for the others. So there is sometimes, or maybe it's not the comment that you make, but it's some observation that they have. So maybe sometimes there is one family member that says something really relevant, and all the other look at this person, and you can see that in that moment they are changing their understanding of what's going on. So usually we have this great idea of the therapist. It is the therapist who says the great thing, and then people change. But sometimes it is not true. The therapist is just the person who helps people to change. So the therapist, you seed, you give seeds for change, and then they blossom, and you don't know when they blossom. But when they do, it's right what you say. You have this very short moment where you have the feeling that something is beginning to change, and maybe after that, in the conversation, nothing happened, but that there has been something meaningful. You have this understanding, but what actually has happened, you discover maybe in the next sessions or a few sessions afterwards, because of course this moment of change is a moment of understanding, of reversal of things. But then, in order to have the proper change, you need adjustment. You need, the change to sink down within each person, and then they have, if you're doing family therapy, they have then to rehearse in the family what's going on with us, what is different, and then they discover maybe that they're not fighting anymore, or that can unveil some family secret that nobody knew, and it's not harmful for everybody. And then what is the experience of having unveiled this secret? And so, after the Kairos moment, you have all these little adjustment moments, and then you see that the family or the individual has gone to a new stage. And then at that point, you can verify, okay, there is something different. What do we do? Shall we go on from here and go on with therapy? Or do you prefer, to stay with yourself? So maybe we terminate therapy. Sometimes we terminate therapy. Sometimes we put therapy on hold. And we say, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see in a couple of months. Or let's see us in 6 months or something like that. And then we'll see. So, the fact is we keep open because, but usually when you have a proper Kairos moment, change is irreversible. So change happened, and then the person is a new person, the family is a new family. Maybe they will develop other problems, but it won't be exactly the same. That's our understanding. Of course, just one caution. Of course, you need some time to verify, to see that the Kairos was really a Kairos moment, because sometimes you have the feeling, but it's not exactly that. So, there is a possibility. But so in the end, you have to wait for the final feedback afterward, when you see, okay, we see that really the family is going on in a different way. At that point, change has happened.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you, Professor Paolo Bertrando.